guys, welcome back to the Skips Tactical Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Avery. Today I have a really special guest with me, and if you do not know who she is, as always, like I say, you will find out who she is by the end of this episode. So today I have Ava with Elite Firearms and Training with me, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking me to be on. It really means a lot.
Oh, thanks for joining. So Ava is the owner of Elite Firearms and Training, and she's located in Colorado, right?
Yep, Colorado Springs.
Nice. So I'm pretty sure you're nice and warm there now.
I was just telling you before the show, I'm a little jealous because it's freezing in my office right now, so I had to go get a heating blanket. And yeah, we actually, I think last week we had technically it was considered a blizzard. It was, but they called it a bomb cyclone. So just lots of wind and basically all the trees in my neighborhood blew over and yeah. So it's been an interesting winter.
Wow. Yeah, I don't like the cold, but it's pretty.
Yeah, right? From a distance.
I know, right? Like, oh, I really like that picture. So you are a firearms instructor located in Colorado Springs. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I started in 2013 and I shot my first gun in 2012 for the first time. I was raised around guns, but I just never really took I never took an interest in it. I was always kind of girly, and when I turned 18, I went to school in New York City, and but my parents did own a gun store. My mom was an instructor, and my mom was actually just short of my 26th birthday, she was the one that taught me how to shoot. And the first time that I shot, I was just really accurate, shot just really well. And then sadly, like a week later, my mom passed away due to a horrible accident. And so I moved back to Colorado from New York and lived with my dad and helped him run the family business. And then that's when I learned about guns. And I also I started to shoot a little bit more because I realized that it actually wasn't, I was for some reason, I was kind of just super nervous to shoot guns. And it wasn't really that I was anti-gun, they just kind of scared me. But when I was shooting, I actually realized it's actually kind of there's so much that takes place. You have to concentrate on so many things that it was almost meditative to a degree. So I started shooting quite a bit. And then it's weird. It's one day it just kind of came to me and I decided that I was going to follow in my mom's footsteps and become an instructor. And I remember I took as many NRA instructor classes as I possibly could, just learned as much as I possibly could. And because I basically started from scratch. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I've had the business now for 6.5 years.
So congratulations on 6.5 years of having the business.
Thank you. It's the longest I've ever had a job. They're the same job anyways.
So your journey to becoming a instructor and also to the gun community is just extremely unique, and it's very inspiring to others. And I know for me, I followed you on Instagram, and I started listening to your podcast, and I started to learn more about you, and you inspired me. Although I was already an instructor, but to see someone, a woman in the gun community, and she was an actual instructor. I know there's probably many instructors out there, but when it comes to female instructors and female instructors that handle themselves a certain way, I don't think there's a lot of them that are out there, or there's not a lot of them that I actually see.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I do appreciate you for being a positive role model in the gun community for women.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me.
So your journey, you said you took a lot of NRA classes. Did you find that it was a difficult journey, or it was just a journey that you just kind of embraced and you just went along for the ride?
It was definitely a difficult journey because I know even starting out when I was taking these classes, and I was qualified by quite a few different instructors. I didn't take, classes with the same instructor, but it was tough because even when I was like learning about these things, I was still hesitant to ask a lot of questions just because it was kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
I mean, even like looking back, learning the difference between single action and double action and then traditional double action, and you try to make sense of it and you try to like remember a way you know, to remember an easier way. And it was just, but I was like embarrassed to even ask for like clarification on that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an easy journey, but like they say, like anything worth having is not going to come easy.
Yeah.
So, was it handed to me was it handed to me like, no, it wasn't. I definitely worked hard to be where I am.
There were no silver platters involved to
Yeah,
earn this
exactly.
goal.
Absolutely.
So when you say being comfortable to ask questions, that's something that I have definitely experienced as well.
Mhm.
Even now, if I were to go to a course, I'm probably going to be the only female. When I think it's just in life in general, when people ask questions, sometimes people are like, oh my God, why are you asking a question? Or that's a stupid question. So as an instructor, I make sure that in the like beginning of the class, I let my class know I'm here for a reason. I'm here to teach you. In my classroom, there's no such thing as a stupid question. You have me from this time to this time. And I try to ease a lot of their, any of their doubts or those just uncertainties that they have. And it's, hey, in this environment, I'm in charge and you can ask all the questions that you want to, because I know exactly what that feels like. You're like, I think I'm just going to have to Google this because I don't want to ask anyone because they're going to make fun of me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I approach my class the exact same way. And, because I know that there is going to be a lot of questions. And I'd like to think that it kind of makes me a better instructor to a degree because I was just in their shoes not too
Yeah.
long ago. So it definitely helps for you to explain things a lot better. But I have no problem answering any questions. They could ask as many questions as they want. I also make sure that I kind of like crack a few jokes in the beginning to kind of, because I know everyone's like when you first get in, nobody knows each other and they're still just, you can tell that they're like a little tense. So I definitely kind of, sort of ease that situation.
Yeah, I like to crack jokes too, but all my jokes are like lame mom jokes. And then they're like, should I laugh? Should I not laugh? And I'm like, are they laughing at me? Are they laughing with me? But they're laughing, so it doesn't matter.
Right? So usually I just laugh at my own jokes and I laugh so hard that I can't even hear if anybody else is laughing. So I don't know.
That's a good thing. I'll have to try that. So it's not even awkward because I can't hear if they're laughing, but they should be laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
Within the actual gun community, so you moved from New York, you went back home, helped your dad, became an instructor. So as far as you joining the Second Amendment community, gun community, how was that?
As far as like getting into the community, I guess I was really surprised by how big the community can be. Because I mean, here I am, like Colorado. Okay, I started to become friends with some of the instructors that were local, but I had no idea like how far that reach went. And so the more that I started putting myself out there and then like talking to like joining some like political groups and stuff, like you just realize like, wow, there's like, it's a huge community that I was completely unaware of.
And I saw how big the community was, but then once I joined the community, I didn't realize like how small it was as well. Like everybody kind of knows everybody.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree with that.
And I think that's just kind of life in general, it's a small world.
It is, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's weird. It's like, I mean, you go to SHOT Show and there's people everywhere, and you're like, wow, there's just, it's crazy, but then it also kind of trickles down to a very small community.
As far as that community, how do you feel it is being a female in that community?
So, I mean, it has its challenges. Um, there's definitely been situations that I've been in where, somebody will hit on me and um, if I don't reciprocate, next thing I know, oh, I'm blocked on social media by that person or they're bad mouthing me. But for the most part, so you have that, and I think that's probably with any community. But then you also have people that really respect the fact that you're a female in the industry, and and they just kind of treat you like like anybody else in the industry, whether you're male or female. So
Yeah.
I've had a lot of good experiences. I've had a few bad experiences, but I think that that's kind of normal, I think, with any industry.
Being the minority in the community, and I think in any community, because females are definitely the minority when it comes
Hmm.
to the gun community, it can
Yeah.
always be kind of tough. But when you start to break some of those barriers, it's like, look at me, look at what I've done. And no one can ever take those types of things away from you. They can
Yeah.
badmouth you all they want to, but I'm a firm believer in when it comes to your work, it just speaks for itself and people can say whatever they want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, if anything, I use it to motivate me.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of actually, it's kind of crazy to say, but I think that that's probably my number one motivation is, I've had a lot of people that doubt me. They've put me down, and it just makes me want to do better. It makes me want to educate myself more, practice, you know. And so I mean, I guess I wish that some women in the industry were treated better, and people welcomed them a little bit more. But I also, I don't think that I'd be where I am if it wasn't for those people that I didn't, want to prove wrong.
Yeah. But I think on the flip side of that, by the way some women are treated, I think it may hinder some women from joining in the community. And I
Mhm.
try to educate people all the time, especially on social media. I had a lot of people who would, I don't want to say come for me because that, they would just really harass me or say mean things to me. And I mean, these people don't know me. So you
Mhm.
don't know anything about me. So you can say whatever you want. And it's you that you're not happy with. It has nothing to do with me. But
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
remind them that so many people really badmouth women not protecting themselves and women not taking their personal safety into their own hands. So I remind them that there's probably women that are looking at the way that you're talking to me right now, and I'm an experienced professional in this field. And if you're going to talk to me like that, how are you going to talk to them? So they're probably
Mhm.
not even going to want to join in on the community because if you're treating me like this, they think you're going to treat them way worse than you're treating me.
Mhm. Absolutely.
But I don't think people really step outside of that box and think about that. But I'm glad that we have women in the community like you that can show, hey, I can do this. And yeah, people may have mistreated me, people may have badmouthed me, but like you said, I'm pretty sure that the good outweigh the bad. And sometimes people tend to focus on the bad, but you've definitely been killing it. And I've seen, I followed you and I'm like, oh, she's doing this and she's doing that. And it just showed me that I can be a woman in the gun community and I can still be exactly who I am and still do my thing.
Mhm. And you're doing an amazing job as well. It's crazy that you've been doing this for a year now. It seems like you've been doing it much longer. I mean, especially with everything that you've accomplished.
I know. So for those of you who are watching or listening, so if you are only listening to the podcast, you can head over to the YouTube page and you can watch the video, the live video of us. But a year ago, I reached out to Ava because I was following her on Instagram. And I'm one of those types of people, I'll shoot my shot. Like, I have no problem doing that. Worst case, they're going to say no. And then if they respond, then they respond. But I never really expect for people to respond. So whenever they respond, I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I say now? They responded. So I think I was just kind of thinking about starting my business and I hadn't started it yet, but I reached out to her and I just said, hey, I really like what you're doing. And I would love to know if you had any advice for me because I'm thinking about starting my business. And she responded. And I was like, oh my gosh, she responded like So I really appreciate you for being down to earth and because a lot of people just don't respond to their DMs. Like they feel like they're above a lot of that. But I appreciate you for responding because then you helped me a bit. And then she even said, hey, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out and ask me. So that was awesome.
Of course. That's actually, I always like, so I do check my DMs. But anytime, especially like if a woman, and it might sound sexist, but especially if a woman messages me and they're like, hey, what do you think about this gun? Or, do you know of any classes or any instructors that are in this state? Or, or even if they're just like, hey, I just wanted to say like you're doing an awesome job. And I'll even get those DMs from guys. Oddly enough, they're like, we really appreciate that you're not showing like TNA. And it actually means a lot that like even men are thanking me for that, because they have daughters that that they want to show them that like, hey, you could be in the industry and kill it and you don't have to show off your assets. But I've always made sure that if anybody takes the time to message me, especially if they're asking for advice, because I know firsthand that it can be tough starting a business. And then especially being like a minority in an industry where it's even more daunting. And I appreciate, like, I've had quite a bit of help along the way. There's people that I've looked up to that I've asked for advice, and you'd be surprised how many people kind of like they won't share their secrets, or they think that they're secrets and they don't want you to know what they know. And you know God forbid, like your success surpasses theirs. And so I just know that I've been in your shoes, and I appreciated any guidance that I got. So if I could pass that along, then absolutely. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I want more women to get involved. I think it's extremely important, especially for our Second Amendment rights.
And when it comes to those secrets, I have people that ask me sometimes as well. They'll go, hey, like, how did you get all these followers on Instagram? Like, what did you do to buy them? And I'm like, obviously you don't know me. I'm very cheap, and like growing a business, like the last thing that I want to do is buy followers. Like I want real people to support me. And
Absolutely.
I tell people, like, you could literally, so I have no problem helping people either. Like people reach out to me, they ask me things, and I've learned so much within the last year. Oh my God. Like I can't believe how much I've learned.
Hmm.
But I've also seeked out a lot of that knowledge, and I've researched the things to where I have pride in the fact that I've learned it and I've been able to implement it. So of course I'll help you out. But you could literally give someone your entire playbook, and it's up to them to implement it and do the hard work. And it's your hard work is going to pay off, but a lot of people don't want to put in the work, and they want to
Hmm.
see like instant results. And when they don't see instant results, and they're like, oh, it's not working. But I'm like, none of this stuff is really secrets. It's like, there may be certain ways that you did what you did, but like when someone shares that with you, it's not taking away from them. Because if anything, every single person that reaches out to you and you give them advice, that's helping you grow as a person. And
Hmm.
their success, like, that you were able to give them advice or whatever it may be. But I mean, what's for you is for you, what's for me is for me, and no one's going to ever take anything away from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for
And
everyone,
it's so true. Like I've given so many people advice, and then I'm like, oh, they didn't take that advice. Okay. Or they don't want to put in the work, which is a lot of people. I mean,
yeah.
regardless of the industry, there's a lot of people that aren't willing to work for what they have, or they think, everybody owes them something. And that's just not the mentality to have, especially if you want to succeed.
Oh yeah, especially in this world of like instant everything. I know I'm very, very guilty of it. Like Amazon Prime, I'm like, I need this right now. I need it
Right.
yesterday. If I can get it in one day, it's even better. And if I got to
Yeah,
add another $25 to my order, I will, so that I can get it in one day.
right. I
But
know, I'm the same way.
so many people are just really hung up on that instant success. But for
Hmm.
me, um, and I don't think I've really shared this with a lot of people. Every time I have a scheduled class, it doesn't necessarily happen. I've had classes to where people don't sign up, and I'm like, okay, fine, no one signed up, then I can just do whatever I was going to do. But I think for a lot of people that would have like shattered their dreams, and I think so many people don't share those highs and lows, because a lot
Hmm.
of people share the highs, but as far as the lows, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to have a class. So if I was going to be teaching a class for 4 hours, now I can go and work on my business for 4 hours, and I don't have to dwell on the fact that no one signed up. But I think if initially every class would have been packed, I wouldn't have appreciated like the grind, and every single student that I've gotten, I know that I've literally worked for it. So I appreciate the fact that everything didn't come immediately and I had to work hard for it.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's really well put. Because I've had classes before too that nobody signed up for. I have some classes where it's like, oh, okay, like tonight, this evening, I'm teaching a class completely sold out. My Sunday class, not so much. And it's like a lot of times it's like, how do you figure this out? But, I think it's like, that's really well said. Like if you don't have those days where it's like, okay, people don't sign up for your class, you can appreciate or pat yourself on the back for your successes, for, the days where it does fill up or it sells out. And I think that people are really hesitant to share their lows, where everyone always brags about their successes, but nobody really shares like what they had to go through to get there, and how many times, I mean, I can't tell you how many times like I've had self-doubt, and I hate that. And I'm sure that most people would not realize that. But I mean, more than anything, I feel like I've constantly, doubted myself, or questioned like, okay, is this where I want to be? Am I doing okay? And and that's something that I guess you don't see like on my Instagram or social media. Like you only see like the good, or where I'm smiling. Um, and so I think that actually we should probably address that more, talk about it more, because I don't think that people realize like it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not always just all,
It's not
oh,
always sexy.
yeah, it's not. It really isn't.
There's a lot of unsexy about it, and especially when you become an entrepreneur. And as far as being a business owner, so we're going to talk more about actually running a business a little bit later in this episode. But yeah, I definitely want to get into that part because, as I stated earlier, she does run her own firm's training business. And the next thing that I want to talk about is, so you said a lot of people, well, not necessarily a lot, but people reach out to you for advice. Do you have a lot of people reach out when it comes to becoming an instructor?
Hmm. Yeah. Some will ask me if I teach the classes, which that is actually something that I want to do. Maybe this year. I keep going back and forth, but I do qualify now to become an NRA counselor. And so they'll always ask if I teach those classes. And I mean, I've had students before, they've taken my class and they're like, oh, I want to become an instructor. And it's like weird, because in a way you think to yourself, okay, cool, so you technically want to be my competition. But I really can't think of it like that, because so many people, like I think so many people can become an instructor. Not very many people can be a teacher. In order to teach, I think it's definitely a gift. It's definitely something that you can't really just learn to do. I think it's kind of natural. Um, and so I never try to prevent somebody from becoming an instructor, because I think that the more educated gun owners there are out there, the better.
Yeah.
But I don't really stress out about it, because I just think that I sort of have a knack for teaching, and I do it well, and so I don't really see it as competition, if
So
that answers your question.
yeah, the way that I see it is, it's definitely a gift.
Hmm.
Everyone is not built for it. Like everyone can go through a
Yeah.
course, and some of these courses are like mad easy, but
Hmm.
they can go through a course, and in one day you will not be able to teach a room full of students. Like that's just impossible. You can teach them, but it probably won't be a good class. Anyone can
Hmm.
read a slideshow. But when it comes to actually being a good instructor, I think it's you attending several different classes and learning from a lot of different instructors.
Hmm.
And I know every single instructor that I've encountered, I've learned something new from every single person. Some instructors, it may be like, I will never ever do that in my life. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Or some, it's like, I really like that joke, or I like the way that they explain this. I'm going to explain it that way.
Hmm.
But some people see that, oh, I really love guns and I just want to become an instructor. And although, like Ava said, I would never discourage anyone from just starting that journey, just know that it is not made for everybody. And a lot, like we said before, some of us may put like the sexy part out there, like, oh yeah, going to the range. But I can promise you, when people go to the range, their video is not necessarily on that first try. There may
Right.
be like 2 or 3 different tries where they get it exactly right, and then that's the video that they're going to use. But
Hmm.
everyone's not made to become an instructor, and it's definitely something that you need to do years and years of just training yourself. Or I know for me, being an instructor in the military, we have to be an assistant instructor for a certain amount of times before we can become the full instructor, the lead instructor, I guess I'd
Hmm.
say. And becoming that assistant instructor, I would sit in the back of the classroom, and of course we would give them feedback, and it's like, hey dude, don't ever make that joke again. Like, that was borderline. You're going to get in trouble, or hey, you did really good at this, or hey, you should probably watch some of your, so I'm a person.
Hmm.
You should watch your ums, and it may get distracting, or that's distracting as well. And when I
Yeah.
teach, I say you guys. And it's really good to get feedback from other instructors. So if there's any advice that I can give to anyone watching this episode or listening to it, find an instructor that you like their style. Everybody has a different style. And from the different instructors that you encounter, you're going to get your own style, and your own style is going to be unique to you. Do not try to make every single joke or teach a class every single way that someone else does, because that's not you, that's them. It's natural for them. But you can grow so much just by sitting in others' classes and learning what they do. And I've had instructors where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe he's still instructing because he is crazy.
Or you're like, they really need to retire.
Like right now, just retired.
They're holding the gun. They're like, okay, and then and you're like, okay, I'm scared.
And then
Did
as an
anybody check to see
instructor,
if that's unloaded?
I know, right? And as an instructor, you also need to be able to work with different people. I've worked with guys who are like, Skip, talk to her. And I'm like, why do I have to talk to her? Because I'm a girl, And it's like, you need to be able to communicate with different experience levels, just different personalities. And you need to be able to get your point across to them all without handing them off to someone else, but also knowing when enough is enough, and knowing when you need another instructor to step in and assist, because you can't reach that person the way that you need to reach them.
Yeah, and patience is huge. It requires so much patience. I would say that's probably actually the biggest thing. I mean, there's sometimes where like I'll teach a class and I'm exhausted. Like mentally, physically, I'm exhausted because it took so much out of me because of, there's so many different types of people out there.
Yeah.
And some people are just, gosh, some people, I mean, I hate to say it, but some people are just extremely annoying. And it takes so much out of you. And like, yeah, so patience is definitely really important. And I know that I hate to say it, but I mean, I don't think guys have as much patience as women.
Yeah, my husband's normally like, why don't you have this much patience with me? And I'm like, listen, dude, I've used it up with my students. I don't have
Right?
any patience left.
I know. I
That's
know.
funny. But it's definitely about having patience, knowing how to communicate with others. And as an instructor, you literally have to sit your ego to the side. I don't have an ego when it comes to this at all. I have people who tell me, I've had students that will sit in my class and tell me that they could teach the class better than me. I mean, never sat in a class before, but you're going to tell me this. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And then when you need me, I'm going to remind you of what you said,
Right.
because, when you come into a classroom, you shouldn't, regardless of what it is, like you can pick up something from every single person that you encounter, even if
Hmm.
you have double the amount of experience as them. But it's funny. So many people have egos, or instructors that have egos when it comes to the students. And it's like, dude, like, why do you have an ego? Like, just check it at the door. You're teaching them. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't even matter.
absolutely. And then if I could add, there's a lot of students that will take their, or I'm sorry, a lot of instructors that will take their students to the range. And I mean, they're shooting all over the place, but if you can't diagnose like what they're doing wrong, and again, like I've really lucked out, like for whatever reason, I have an eye for it. Like I could watch somebody shoot a few rounds and I could tell exactly what they're doing wrong. And if they're willing to listen, I could have you shooting bullseyes by the end of class. But there's so many instructors that are like, well, they pull out that little sheet where it's like, okay, that target, okay, well, you're limp wristing it, oh, you're pulling too hard on the trigger, let's see, okay, when all else fails, like, all right, what else could it be? But they just don't have a great way of like diagnosing like exactly what that student is doing wrong. And and that doesn't really help anybody if you can't correct the student's mistakes, especially if they're beginners. At this point they're developing good habits, or they're developing habits, so you want them to be good habits.
Yes, and something that I try not to do is I don't harp on this
Every
is
little thing.
exactly what you're doing wrong, because
Yeah.
I noticed that if you harp on that one thing, they're only focused on that one thing and everything else goes out the door and you're like, oh my God. Like, I just need you to focus on all of these things. And
Hmm.
then if there's something that they can improve on, it's like, okay, yeah, guys, you need to do better with this, and this. But sometimes I just notice that they will focus on that one thing and it's like,
And
what about
everything
your
else goes out the
what about
window.
your breathing? It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to instructors, you said probably one of the biggest skills would be for them to have patience. When it comes to just women in the community, is there any advice that you would have for them?
um well, I think that a lot of women in the industry, they try to succeed the quickest way possible, which is, showing off their assets. And I'm not opposed. It's not like I'm like some little old lady who's like, oh no, everybody's got to be wearing a turtleneck. Um, but I would say, like, I don't think it's really necessary in order for you to succeed and gain followers and gain attention, if you're doing the right things. And so I guess that's like the biggest thing, that it's just like I cringe when I see that, because it's just kind of like the easy way out. Um, it's again that like quick gratification.
Yeah.
So I would tell people, like, have like some self-respect and realize that that is not the way to get your name out there and to gain success overnight. There's other ways to do it, much more, much more tactfully.
And that's true. Like, not all attention is good attention. So you
Hmm.
may have a lot of eyes on you and you may think that that's good, but it's not necessarily good. And I kind of saw that myself when I went to SHOT Show this year.
Hmm.
There would be people, and I'm very observant, so I would kind of sit back and watch, and it would be someone and they would say something and it's like, oh hey, how are you? And it's like, hi, and then they walk away and the person's like, oh my God, like, did you see her boobs? I bet they're fake. And it's just like they're talking crap and I'm like, oh my God, like, she was just standing here and she thought that they were cool, and then when she walked away and it's like, oh, she's such a bee and all this stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. But I mean, you can never go wrong just by keeping your dignity, because you can actually go to sleep at night and
Hmm.
know that you haven't sold your soul for a case of ammo.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I think the people that do that, I mean, and guys do it too. I don't want to just pick on women, because guys, there's, like the term gun bunny. There's so many guys out there that are basically, the
Male
male
gun
or the,
bunnies.
yeah. And, but I think if you do it that way, I don't think that you're here to last very long in the industry. I mean, you'll see like time and time again, a lot of that just has like a quick turnover rate. And I think it's because, they realize like there's no dignity left, or looks fade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's only going to get you so far. So I plan on being in this industry for a while. I'm not just going to, I guess, get success as quickly as possible. I'm going to do it the right way.
And I think everyone's definition of success is different as well.
Mhm.
My definition of success is not 20,000 followers. My
Mhm.
definition of success is when I have the individuals who reach out to me and they're like, because of you, I want to do this. Or I just had someone the other day reach out and she's like, my brother wanted me to get my CCW for like the past 15 years. And I saw you and I saw an interview you did, and now I'm going to go get it. And I have a lady who's traveling from Houston and she's coming here on vacation, and she's like, I need to schedule it so it's just right so I can take a class with you. And I'm like, that's like my 2019. Like, that's great
Right.
for me, you know, because every single person that I can make an impact on is a win in my book, not just
Mm-hmm.
someone clicking the follow button just so they can creep on my page and see what I'm doing.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So I think now we can probably pivot to talk more about business. So I definitely want to hear about some of your experiences in regards to being a business owner in the 2A community. And I know for me, it's been hard. You've been doing it for way longer than I have. You said about 6.5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, kudos to hitting 6.5 years, because I know a lot of people can't even make it 6 months. I didn't think I was going to make it 6 months. There was a lot of restless nights.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? They say like if your business survives 2 years, then it's there to stay. But I remember even after like 2 years, I'm like, okay. I mean, there's plenty of times where I'm like, this is it. This is the year. This is the month that, my business just goes under. Um, and there's just so many, again, so many highs, so many lows. Statistically, usually in the summer, that's when classes are going to be the slowest. And nobody told me that. So here I am, like summer, and it's like, okay, where did everybody go? Like, up, this is, so like with those trends, I've now like prepared, like, okay, whatever money, I make a bunch of money in the winter. All right, but I'm gonna have to put some aside because summer is gonna be slow, because it's always like that for anybody really in the firearm
Yeah.
industry, even gun sales, everything statistically is slow. But that's a lot of the things that people don't tell you. You kind of have to experience for yourself. And yeah, I don't know. It's like it's weird because like looking back, I wonder like, gosh, could I do it all over again? And because it's a lot of work. People just think, oh, okay, I'm gonna go get qualified. I'll buy a few guns for people to use at the range, and I'm gonna become an instructor, and I'm gonna have my business. But it's just, what people don't tell you is like when you own your own business, it's not just a 9 to 5 job. It's not like, cool, you have the weekends off. You can, the minute you leave your office on Friday, you could put work behind you. I mean, you are like, I have people messaging me at like 3, 4 a.m. And, a lot of times like it'll wake me up. Like I have um, a feature on my website where it pops up, it's a chat. And if I'm active on my phone, so let's say I wake up in the middle of the night for a little bit, it'll show that I'm active. And then I have like people messaging me at 3 a.m. So it's like you can never, you're always working. You're never really going to have a day off. There's always something that you could be doing. Um, Even if you complete one task, all right, you could always be working on something else.
Yes, I didn't realize that I would have to wear like 500 different hats at the same time and need
Yes.
to be an expert on all things business, but also you still have to be a great firearms instructor and stay up on your skills, which is kind
Hmm.
of hard to do because you have to balance your business in your life.
Yeah. And I also noticed like the more that I get into the industry, the more it's like I used to love just like going to the range, shooting, doing, like IDPA and stuff like that. And it's like now I'm like, who has time for that? Like, all right, I teach you students, and then at the end of the day, I should probably like, okay, let's practice for an hour and work on my skills. But it's like, or if I do have a day off, I have still a million other things to do. It's not like I could just go to the range and like shoot for fun. And so in that way, it's kind of, I don't know, you don't get jaded, but that whole concept where it's like do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life, I kind of think it's BS.
You're like,
Because
who said
yeah,
that? Because they were lying.
I mean, it's definitely better. Like I much prefer to work for myself versus somebody else, because before this I worked for the New York Yankees, and there was days where like you would work 40 days in a row, don't have a day off. Like
Oh,
my
wow.
dry cleaning would be stuck at the cleaners, and I'm like, I can't even pick it up because literally like I don't have time unless it's like at 3 a.m. And you're just working your butt off to make some other organization a bunch of money, and they don't care if you're happy or not, or if you can pay your bills, or Like there's a million people that would love to take your job. So I didn't want to feel like I was replaceable. And so even though it's like I'm probably not making as much money as if I had like a 9 to 5 job, at least I'm working for myself and all of my efforts are being, like are paying, like they're not necessarily paying off, but I'm putting my effort towards something that I don't feel is wasted.
Yeah, it's like you're building your legacy versus building someone else's.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, as far as you having your own business, been in the gun community, what do you think is one of your, so we'll say, what is one of the hardest things you've dealt with? So I'll share something for me. So for me, just doing everything, I'm like, oh my God, like who knew you had to pay quarterly taxes and then federal taxes? And where do I go to pay this? Like, where is this place, you know? So it's like, okay, so I do the sales tax and the use tax, and it's like, oh my God, like, but you have to figure it out, you know? But that's something that
Yeah.
people don't talk about because, you know, for me, it's like super stressful and then it goes away because, oh, I paid my taxes, so I'm good to go right now. So things
Right.
like that, you know, that you really didn't know that you're going to have to deal with. What's one of like probably the hardest things you've had to deal with?
Well, the taxes thing has been such a freaking pain. And then remembering too, it's like, oh, okay, it's been 3 months, time to do the quarterly, or even liability, like insurance, like you don't realize like with anything, there's always liability involved.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're covered because God forbid something happens. I mean, it can ruin your life. Um, but I don't know. I guess there isn't one thing that sticks out where I guess for me, the biggest thing is, self-doubt. I mean, especially when you're the sole business owner, you don't have a business partner where you can sit there and be like, okay, what are we doing? Okay, it's okay. Like, kind of like in a relationship, when one person's having a bad day, the other person's there to kind of pick you up. And so when you're the sole owner, there isn't that one person that's going to be like, hey, it's okay. Tomorrow's going to be fine. We're going to get through this. You're going to have the business. So if there is an issue, you're facing it alone. And then when you have that self-doubt or you wonder like, okay, if what I'm doing is enough, um, I think that's probably my biggest obstacle. And, because there is a lot of self-doubt. I'm constantly like second guessing myself, which I don't think that a lot of people would realize, just by looking at, the face of it.
Being an entrepreneur is definitely an emotional roller coaster. I don't think
Yeah.
that people put that out there enough. It's like, you know, you have your high highs and then your lows are like, that's it, I'm done. Let me do
Yeah.
a big
I'm
old
just going to close up shop.
presentation. I'm just gonna
I mean,
sell this crap.
yeah. And even like I'd say like my training business has gotten to the point where it kind of does run itself. I mean, I've gotten to the point where, okay, yeah, I still have to do like the paperwork and stuff, but it's gotten pretty easy to manage. But then starting the podcast, so it's been almost a year since I've had my podcast, and that is like a ton of work. And, and then there's times where it's like shows will be posted and I listen back and it's like, oh, I hate the way I sound. And, and you don't realize how much work, like how much prep work goes into it. And even that, I mean, there's been times where I'm like, I don't know if this is worth it. Like I kind of just call it a day. Hey, it's been like a great 85 episodes or whatever. And I'm out.
And I'll check you guys out on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand that. I do all my own editing for my episodes.
Hmm.
And my first episode was, I think it was like 4 minutes, but it took me like 6 hours to edit it. And I was like, I didn't know that this was going to be this hard. My husband's like, I'm so sorry you're so stressed out. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy. But those are the things that people don't see, you know?
Hmm.
And then also just like really not liking the way that your voice sounds. Like, I think that's kind of a thing
That's
for
natural.
everyone.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how often those types of things happen. And you look back on it and go, okay, well, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. You know, like I actually
Yeah.
made it through this.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's definitely tough. And I would say, even for my podcast, I only now, like in the last 10 episodes, do I feel like, okay, I think I found my voice. I'm happy with the way that the podcast sounds. But if you think about it, it took almost a year to get to that point. That's
That's
like,
great.
but that's a lot of work. That's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of self-doubt. That's a lot of like, hey, I don't even know where, like, and that's another thing that people don't realize. And everybody thinks it's so easy to start their own show, their own podcast. Oh, just get a microphone, record it, cool, publish it. And even publishing is a pain. I've gotten to the point, luckily with my show, due to like crowdfunding and stuff, we could afford an editor and um, a producer. So he now edits the show and publishes it, so I don't have to do that. But even that it's a lot of work. It's time consuming.
It's really time consuming.
Yeah.
So I enjoy your podcast. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I do enjoy it. It makes me laugh. So you
Thank you.
guys should definitely head over and listen to her podcast called Gun Funny. You'll definitely get a lot of laughs.
Yeah, it's kind of funny sometimes. I'm like, oh yeah, we're just basically embarrassing ourselves the entire time, and we do prank calls, but it is fun. And I'm glad that I make people laugh, because I don't think that there's anything better in this world than to laugh.
Oh yeah.
And I
You can,
think that's why, you kind of have to have a sense of humor, because if you take yourself too seriously, or you let everything bother you and you can't laugh at yourself, like, then you're really going to be miserable.
oh yeah. There's been some times where I've had to laugh through some situations, and it's like I gotta laugh because either I'm going to swing a cactus or
Right? I know.
so as far as so we talked about heart part in the business. What about a really rewarding part or one of your highest highs?
Well, I mean, definitely like being able to make my own schedule. That's huge. Or if I want to work from home, that's also nice. It's crazy because I have had a lot of moments where I'm in the moment and I'm just like, wow, I feel like such a high from, where I am right now in life. And finally, like all the hard work that I've put in is paying off. And I can't, I mean, it's just, and it could be like little things too. It's amazing how many things nowadays like make me happy. Like it could just be like a really good interview where it's like, wow, I just feel like, I hit that out of the park, or we have a show where, the guest just, everything just flows really well. And as a result, you kind of just, just feel that sense of accomplishment. Or even like if a certain company wants to work with you, let's say a company that you really admire, that you've always really liked their products, and now they want to work with you, and it's just like, wow, like you guys want to work with me, like you think, like I'm good enough for you to, and
Yeah.
so I mean, just lots of like little accomplishments like that. I can't think of anything that was like, I guess, huge.
Every single time I hit a small thing, it's like, and I'm really I get really humbled a lot. It's like, I can't believe, these amount of people support me or these amount of people really enjoy what I'm doing. And
Mm,
I take a step back and it's like, oh man, like I'm really appreciative for each and everything that comes my way.
yeah, absolutely. And you have to be. Those are the things that keep you going.
For those low moments, you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, so last week I remembered that
Yeah, let me go back to that moment.
when you're doing your quarterly taxes, you can look back on that one moment.
Yeah, I know.
So I definitely appreciate you coming on today. Is there any last words that you would like to share with the audience?
I mean, honestly, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and asking me to be on your show. Like, it really means a lot to me, because I know that there's a ton of people that you could have on. And so, when you reached out to me, I was like, absolutely, like super excited to come on. Um, as far as, like, just to tell people, if anybody ever has any questions, or even if it's just something like little, like, hey, what are your thoughts on this gun? Or what do you think, what do you think would be a good class? Or, I mean, anything. Like, I try to make myself as open as possible. Anybody who's going to take the time to even write in, like I really try to make an effort to respond to that. But you know, and everybody has to start somewhere. So just remember that. I mean, even if you're not going to start your own business, even if you're just like, I don't know, I really want to learn how to operate guns, but I keep putting it off and I'm scared. And, I mean, at the end of the day, like, you're not going to get past that if you don't take the first step towards conquering your goal. So and even if it's baby steps at first, it's fine, because eventually those little baby steps are going to lead towards, miles.
Oh yeah, every day, like just taking a step in the right direction is another step in the right direction.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So one last thing that I forgot to talk about that I want to talk about really quick though is when it comes to people that are anti-gun. I know that you said that you live alone, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So when it comes to people that are anti-gun, how do you feel about that?
So recently I was quoted in this article that was anti-gun, and not only do I regret that interview, but um, so when it was published, I was reading a lot of the comments, and so many anti-gun comments, and it's crazy how I think when you're in a certain community, whether it's like, Democrat or conservative, we tend to just live in that community and sort of have like that tunnel vision where we don't, I mean, there's certain like news networks that we typically watch versus, a network that
Yeah.
kind of goes against our beliefs. And I think that as a result, we kind of develop that tunnel vision. We're not aware of like the outside world. And so I was reading a lot of these comments that were anti-gun, and it's alarming how many people think that, like, how many people, like, I guess it's crazy for me to think that, again, it's so crazy because I can't even form my sentence.
I think a
It's
lot of people are just miseducated. Like they're thinking things that don't even really exist.
Well, people think that, so I live alone, and I feel totally fine living alone. I am not paranoid at all, and that's because I have firearms. If I didn't have a firearm, like I lived in New York City alone and I did not have a firearm, every little noise would freak me out. Anytime I'd hear something or my dog would bark, I would get freaked out. I'd like grab like a bottle of hairspray. Okay, I'm gonna spray them in the eyes, and then, but it's like there's no other equal force that I could use, like a baseball bat. Okay, that still takes, if they're really big, physically, I don't even know if I'd be able to do that much damage. So it's like, it's crazy how many people think that, like the police officers, like if something happens, they're going to call the cops and the cops are going to show up right away and they're going to save them, when legally there is no duty for them to protect the public. Like,
Yeah.
people don't realize that. So I guess I can understand to a degree, when they think that, okay, certain guns should be banned, and even then it's like, I think that they're uneducated, because they realize how much that actually doesn't really, that's not going to save lives. um, but if nothing else, like, shit hits the fan, like, what are you going to do? What are people going to do to protect themselves?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be that bottle of hairspray. It's not going to be the police officers that show up, or the government. I mean, for the most part, like, their duty is to investigate the situation, but they're not going to run in there and take a bullet for you.
And I think
And
we've seen that before.
yeah, and I mean, it's just, that has to be the most eye-opening. It's just, yeah, I can't believe just reading these comments and just like how eye-opening that was. And to think, like, they think that we're the crazy, like, extremists, when really at the end of the day all we want to do is make sure that we protect ourselves and our loved ones.
I think, and that's like the root of it all, just to make sure that you can properly defend, protect yourself and the
Hmm.
people that you love.
Yep, absolutely.
So, one last question that I'm going to ask you is if there is one person, or it doesn't necessarily have to be one person, it can be a couple of people, that you would like to tell that you appreciate, and what do you appreciate them for?
So first would be my mom. um, because I mean, obviously I'm in this industry because of her, but I am so thankful for I guess, like how she's raised me. And, and only now it's like you look back and it's just like, I don't think that I would have been able to accomplish as much as I did if she just didn't instill just even her strength, her education, even like her business sense, and it's crazy how much she really did teach me, like in the 25 years that I was with her. And so that, like, I'm extremely grateful for. She definitely, my sister and I both, like, she definitely taught very strong women, raised really strong women. Um, and then somebody who's been a huge guidance for me is Sean Heron from We Like Shooting, who's also my host with Gun Funny. But there's so many times where it's like I ask for advice or we just brainstorm ideas off of each other, and so it's kind of nice to have that. And then recently there's the YouTuber Mr. Guns and Gear.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the last like year, I've asked him quite a bit, like for advice or what companies like he'd recommend, and he's also been like extremely helpful. And so yeah, so right now probably those three people.
And the reason why I do this is because I know a lot of the times we have so many people that we appreciate, and we just kind of get into the normal daily routine of our life, and we kind of forget to tell them that we appreciate them. So I like to kind of remind people to just sometimes let that person know that you appreciate them, because I know for me, sometimes I feel like I'm posting and it's like, I see there's likes, but like, is anyone really listening to what I'm saying? Or do they really care? And just taking the time out to drop a message, and it could be like, I appreciate you. It's just something
Hmm.
very quick, but to just let people know that you appreciate them and what they do for you or with you.
Yeah, I agree, and that's actually, it's really nice that you do that.
I think that's just like the mom in me. So, Ava, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you onto the show. And where can people follow you at?
So I'm on social media, Elite Firearms and Training. That's on Facebook and Instagram. Otherwise, on Instagram for Gun Funny, it's Gun Funny Podcast. And then on Facebook, just search for Gun Funny. And you could also go to gunfunny.com as well for all of those links.
And so you heard it here, Ava with Elite Firearms and Training, and she is also the host of Gun Funny Podcast. Go check her out. And if you check her out, make sure that you shoot her a message and let her know that you heard about her from Skip's Tactical Solutions. And thanks for coming on, Ava.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you.